Okay, that's a truly tough act to follow. Finance Minister and her sharp answers have had everyone floored. We'll just give a little bit of time. I think Mr. Mehta is around. All right, what are we talking about today? You know why India has been able to stand up to tariffs? Why India has been relatively resilient during the biggest global financial crisis in the last several decades? Well, the answer is consumption. Consumption is the bedrock of our economy, and it's a domestic consumption which fuels us. Consumption in India may have been sluggish in recent quarters, weighed down by inflation and weak consumer sentiment, but it is no doubt what is keeping us going. Now, with the government's bold GST reforms, simplifying the rate structure, lowering taxes on daily use items, and reducing compliance hurdles, there's renewed optimism. These changes are designed to put more money in consumers' hands, boost affordability, and revive demand at a critical juncture. Joining us to unpack how these reforms could reshape consumption patterns are industry stalwarts. I'm speaking today with Rahul Bharti, Executive Director, Maruti Suzuki. We will be joined shortly by Dr. Jayen Mehta, Managing Director, GCMMF, that's Amul, as we all know and love it, and Sanjeev Bikhchandani, Founder and Executive Vice Chairman, Info Edge India. Let's begin. Gentlemen, it was excellent to hear some of your questions to the Finance Minister as well. We've had that opportunity to hear from her wisdom and thought behind what government wants to achieve. What's really clear is the ball is now in your court. And when I say your, I mean industry. Industry has to take that mandate forward and make it easier for people to consume. I'm going to start with you, sir, Mr. Bharti, on how Maruti plans to do that. Yes, the cuts will be passed on. You've made a commitment on the NDTV platform that you see demand surging and coming in as high as 12%. How do you see this really boosting the urge and the ability for more Indians, especially first-time buyers, to buy their first car?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you. It's the domestic consumption that gives the resilience to India to weather all these storms and headwinds like tariffs, etc. And again, agree with you that the government has done a major, bold reform, a historic reform, I would say. They have given a major gift to the consumer of India across sectors, across segments. And most of these are mass consumption items. I mean, food, medicines, agri, mobility, all segments of mobilities, trucks, buses, three-wheelers, small cars, two-wheelers. So, of course, now, the first, of course, is, as we mentioned, it is industry's absolute imperative that we pass on 100% of this benefit, and at least at Maruti, it's a religion, and not just this time, it has been since all times to come. So 100% of this will be passed on to the consumer. The second is, of course, we expect a demand surge. You would know that compact cars, smaller cars, have been degrowing for a while. So this financial year, for example, the first 5 months of the year, we had a decline of about 6%. But we expect that this may swing to something like plus 10%. So that's a swing of 16%. And of course, there's a small benefit to larger cars also, depending on the slab structure. We expect consumers to come back. And now what we have to do is be quick in servicing that demand fast, ensuring that our cost structure remains competitive, and no other, any kind of inflationary pressures are totally well managed with in-house cost reduction, etc.
May I ask you, Mr. Bharti, because especially with the automobile sector, for example, for Mr. Mehta, the demand is inelastic. People are still going to buy milk, curd, paneer, etc. But for cars, if people could not afford it, and in the small cars, the small passenger vehicle segment, you've seen growth go down. If people could not afford it, will that 10% GST cut make the difference?
Oh, certainly, huge.
You think so?
It will. So the net impact to the customer, for example, in small cars, so from 128, it will move to 180, the total cost, if 100 is the base price. So that reflects a reduction of about 8.5% to 9%. It will make a huge difference. It does.
You wanted to comment?
Yeah, no, look, also, this news of GST cuts has been doing the rounds for a while, right? So there's also likely that a lot of people had postponed waiting for these cuts. And now that these cuts are there, there will be some held back demand that will come in immediately. So there might be a surge.
But you've seen degrowth over several quarters, way before the GST news has come in. The degrowth in the small car segment has been an issue, and maybe some of it is moving upwards.
I think it might have been accentuated by some people holding back for a few weeks.
And if I may add, the buoyancy is not only because of GST. You know, the budget recently, the income tax structure was made more favorable. The government placed more money in the hands of the consumer. Then we have the repo rate cuts. It's probably one of the lowest ever, the interest rates that are there. All these collectively will generate a lot of buoyancy, and we are expecting demand to come back.
So, Mr. Mehta, for you, the demand is inelastic, like we said. But on the other hand, dairy producers are set to increase rates, is what we hear. How do you see this? Will there be more increase in rates on the base level just because of that kind of demand coming in? How do you see it play out?
No. Well, there is no proposal to increase rates of any of the products.
Not from your end, from the dairy farmers, basic milk prices.
I don't think that's an issue at the moment. For a simple reason, the rains have been very good, and overall the market momentum is also there. The first part is on the demand, which is very, very important. While one may say that it is inelastic, actually it is a function of the incomes also, and pricing also. So if your income increases by 1, the consumption of dairy increases by 1.1. And milk and dairy is the single largest item in everyone's monthly household consumption. And I'm not just referring to food, it is entire consumption basket. Dairy is the highest. So that is the importance of this segment, both from the consumption point of view and also, of course, from the production point of view. As we know, milk is the largest agricultural crop of India, and value of output of milk in India is more than wheat, paddy, oilseeds put together. So it is very important, and 4% of India's GDP comes from the dairy sector, and 1/4 of the agri GDP comes from the dairy sector. So that it's a very important sector, and once you bring down the GST, I mean, it's either 0, which is on milk, and rest of the products are 5%, including ice creams. So what we are now looking at a scenario is that while people will consume products, the consumption of per capita of many of the dairy products, excluding milk, starting with ice creams, for instance, ghee, butter, cheese, it is very, very less. Per capita consumption of ice cream in India is only 5 cups per person per year, which is 500 ml as compared to 15 to 20 liters for developing countries or developed countries. So, which means there is a big headroom for growth. 1 in 10 Indians consume butter, and I'm not telling about what quantity of butter they consume. 1 in 20 perhaps consumes cheese. These are all aspirational products, and they were all taxed very high. The new policy has brought them into affordable category.
What is the kind of volume growth you think you will see?
We have been growing at double digit, but now the rate of growth will be much, much more high. And you have to now also see the reforms in context of what happened in the past. 2 years back, under the PLI scheme, the government encouraged us to invest and also supported that investment. So we doubled our capacity of manufacturing ice creams. And now with this cut, you can imagine we will have to double our capacity in the next 2 years. Same applies to cottage cheese. Same applies to other dairy products. So we are seeing a big growth. And second dimension of the growth is not just the growth organically. People are also moving in from loose and unbranded to package and branded. And that's where the industry will grow. And once the industry grows, the consumer base grows, the producers benefit. And this is what is the optimism for the entire dairy sector because of these reforms.
I think we need to look at what has happened from a larger context than just a tax cut. Because yes, everyone loves paying less taxes. And then you'd want to either save more or spend more. But what is the virtuous cycle that gets kick-started? And Mr. Bikhchandani, I'm going to come to you on this point. The pain point, not in the quantum of jobs, but the quality of jobs for a very large young population. Do you think this helps kickstart that process?
Well, look, quality of jobs will depend a lot on overall GDP growth, right? And if overall GDP growth picks up across sectors, you will see quality of jobs. At the same time, there's this AI imperative, okay, where there's fear that people may lose jobs. Look, in general on GST, I'd say this: anything that reduces complexity for businesses to comply with, especially small companies who can't really afford the cost of complying. It's not, actually complying, which is complicated, right? Anything that reduces complexity is great. Anything that reduces taxes and that those tax cuts are passed on to the consumer will cause an increase in demand. Right? And that's also very good. Now, whether or not tax cuts are passed on will depend on competition. Companies will do what makes sense. So if my competitor is cutting prices and passing on taxes, so will I.
I don't think there is a choice in this point. I think the message from government and policymakers are very clear that these tax cuts is not for you to line your margins.
Well, look, if it's a free market, people will do what makes business sense for them, although they might posture that, they're passing on. But it's competition that will ensure that tax cuts are passed on. Government cannot do a command and control thing on a sustainable basis. So जहाँ competition है, वहाँ tax cuts pass on हो जाएंगे.
So then coming back to the core question, do you see this as boosting better quality jobs? And we'll come to the AI imperative in a minute because that is a real concern. But in the context of kicking off that cycle.
Look, like I said, if GDP growth goes up, there will be more jobs, all sorts of jobs. The lower end jobs, the higher end jobs, the middle jobs. If GDP growth picks up, there will be all sorts of jobs.
Mr. Mehta, what is the kind of capacity increase that you see which will be needed across industry to live up to that demand? And is that demand looking like it will actually come? I mean, for Amul, I see that you are focusing so much on protein and increasing the protein needs of a population that actually is undernourished to that extent when it comes to protein. These are also all aspirational items in the larger section and scheme of things. What is the kind of capex expansion you see being boosted by this? Let's put numbers to it.
Okay, coming to this question, yes, milk is a superfood and we are lucky that we handle almost 350 lakh liters of milk every day and every liter of milk is 3% protein. So the goodness of protein is coming to us in more ways than one, but the initiative to bring in high protein products which meet our daily requirements and so that each one of us achieves the goal of having 1 gram of protein per kg of body weight in a very tasty, affordable and nice manner is what is our endeavor has been. Now cheese is when you make cheese out of milk, you get the whey, and from whey we are extracting this high quality protein and manufacturing this wide range of products. So this resource was already available. We have 3 million liters of whey every day. Now we have found the technology to convert into wide range of products, starting with high protein buttermilk, lassis, to super milks, to whey protein concentrates, and so on and so forth, including ice creams, yogurts, and so on. So this is a journey which we thought will take a longer time, but you are right, the consumer demand is actually overtaking, and we are almost doubling the capacity every alternate month. So by March,
doubling the capacity for
almost for manufacturing of high quality whey protein products, double almost every alternate month. And by March, our capacity this year will be actually 6 to 7 times more than what was in the beginning of the year. And this is again just the beginning, because in terms of demand, we just at the tip of the iceberg. Though there are more than 2 million active users for our app, and we are selling right now only online through our own direct-to-consumer channel. But the market is much, much bigger, and everyone, we believe, is a high-protein consumer. So this is where our efforts are into expanding the capacities, putting more products, in the market, and more importantly, educating the customer about the requirement of protein in our lives. So this is one big area of capacity expansion and improvement going on, but simultaneously a lot of work happening in collecting more milk from the rural areas, adding more cooperatives, adding more women members on the cooperatives, connecting their bank accounts to the supplies that we have, and the infrastructure to build large dairies and manufacturing not just protein, but a wide range of dairy products starting butter, ghee, cheese, ice creams.
What is the capex number you can give us,
So
sir?
2 years back when we had the World Food India, the India Inc. had made a, what you call, the MOUs worth 33,000 crore rupees. Amul that year, and I'm talking just 2 years back, was 1/3 of it at about 13,000 crores. Okay, this cycle is almost getting to an end this year. And the World Food India, which is going to happen by the end of this month, we are again going to announce almost similar kind of a capex. So you can imagine the opportunity that we have in the country in expanding the dairy product business. But again, as I mentioned, our success is not in building large plants. It is into going large number of rural areas, putting up village dairy cooperative societies, and adding more farmers to the organized sector.
Of course, it is you're creating consumers for tomorrow. You're creating the next list of business people for tomorrow as well. Mr. Bharti, from Maruti's perspective, and this is interesting. The idea is that this is a small car company. By the way, 2/3 of your inventory is going to attract 40% GST even now, if I'm not mistaken. About 1/3 will be in the 18% bracket.
Inventory is a one-time issue, but we were slightly conscious of this because the larger cars attract a cess, and cess was uncertain. So we consciously, pulled back slightly on the larger cars, which attracted a cess during building inventory. We were slightly cautious while building inventory after the 15th August announcement.
No, that's fine. Just trying to get a sense of how much of what Maruti sells will now be taxed at 40% and how much of 18%, because the impression is that Maruti is the small car maker.
That's not totally true. So about 70% of our volume will fall in the 18% bracket, and the balance will fall in the 40% bracket. And the EV will also launch, so that will fall under the 5% bracket.
Okay. Do you see demand now picking up across the board, especially for first-time buyers? Or do you think now you will see people upscaling as well? If they had aspiration for, say, an X vehicle, will this tax incentive boost them to go a little higher in budget?
There may be some amount of uptrading, but the huge benefit that we are excited about is many first-time buyers coming into the, buying their first car. There are about, for example, in the past 10 or 15 years, about 20 crore two-wheeler owners would have, two-wheelers would have been purchased in India. Sooner or later, they would aspire for their cars. Whether it takes them 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, it will make the jump easier for them. And there's a peer factor also, fear of missing out, that if everybody is doing it, I shouldn't be left out. So that buoyancy in the consumption we see. And I really compliment the FM. One very startling statistic that she mentioned, this reform touches almost 140 crore Indians. We talk about mass consumption, food, we talk about medicines, insurance, he said like milk or milk products, three-wheelers, trucks, buses. There would hardly be any consumer or any profile in India which would remain untouched from this. So there will be a general buoyancy of this.
Now, apart from the general buoyancy, I think one point that was made in that conversation was also about compliance. Sanjeev, your view, and you work with so many young entrepreneurs, do you think that there is more work to be done before that compliance dread of GST and the cost of it really comes down?
Look, I think the simpler it is, the fewer returns you have to file. And this simplification is a good step, that there are fewer slabs. There's less interpretation about which slab I'm in. right? So this is all a step in the right direction. So there are two aspects, simplification and reduction. Reduction is good from a demand perspective because hopefully it will lead to price drops for consumers. But simplification is even better for producers and sellers, small, especially SMEs. I mean, because the simpler you make it, the easier compliance becomes.
The price drop is going to lead to maybe a demand buoyancy which is one time. In the sense that, okay, yes, those who are on the fence will come in. Over time, it will have to be an overall boost to consumption which will have to come through.
Yes, but here, एक बार consumption boost again one time, obviously that money goes somewhere. So it'll be in circulation. And you might be kicking off a virtuous cycle.
Virtuous cycle, precisely.
Which will actually benefit everybody.
We have been talking about what the government and policymakers and all the state finance ministers have actually come together on GST, simplified it. But the fact is that there's always more that industry wants. And we've heard from a perspective of every stakeholder today at the NDTV Profit GST Conclave. I think it's only fair that we also hear industry's perspective. One is, of course, you are passing it on. Whether that is, for the good of the consumer, it's the right thing to do, whatever be the imperative. What more do you think is now needed to boost industry? Because the fact is that private capex overall has been a laggard compared to everything else that has happened. The government keeps giving those incentives in the hope of private capex boosting. It's not yet come about. What do you think is needed to really prod those animal spirits? I'm going to start with you, sir.
And I think the answer you just gave a couple of minutes ago, when we talk about either compliance or ease of doing business, and Madam FM also talked about it, a large part of that happens in the state governments. So all those issues which you need to get your plant running, all the approvals, the infrastructure support, the logistics, the small, so the everyday friction of doing business, if that reduces, things should be much better. So a large part of it depends on the state governments.
Your answer to that, Sanjeev?
Look, I think there's a deregulation commission. Okay, there's a deregulation commission announced by the government in the last budget that has begun work. Hopefully, it will actually make doing business easier. I genuinely believe that if deregulation actually happens, if Inspector Raj ends, you will get a 2% boost to GDP growth without any investment. Just deregulate.
Who has to do it? Center, state?
Both.
How does we were still talking? We're still talking about Inspector Raj in 2025.
A lot of the Inspector Raj is with states, and I guess different states will do it differently, but it will make a huge difference.
Yeah. Any inputs on that, Mr. Mehta?
I think the states are actually now rolling out the red carpet for investments. And Maruti is a very distinct, classic example for Gujarat. I come from Gujarat, where we have vibrant Gujarat event for now more than 20 years. And the Prime Minister today, who was the Chief Minister, actually initiated this process. And you have similar templates of states rolling out such a very high-profile investment attracting events across the length and breadth of the country. Having said that, we should also look at it in totality. As I mentioned, all of the government approach actually is giving us very good results. And when we talk, and when I talk of Amul, we are connected from the farmers to the consumers. Infrastructure boom is helping us. Milk moving in tankers, on trains, coming from Gujarat to Delhi in just 12 hours. Okay, the infrastructure development support given by the government, multiple ministries working for a common issue, our Ministry of Cooperation setting up startups in areas for exports, be it organics. Even we are now thinking of starting a taxi drivers cooperative, which will beat your Ubers and Olas. Okay, so this is the spirit of working together to benefit the smallest person, be it a milk producer or a driver or anybody else, is actually seeing a lot of benefits into it. And who else and which other country of such a large size, the Prime Minister goes on the Red Fort and says that I'm going to fight tariffs because I want to support my farmers. So this is what actually will be driving the growth of our country. And we are talking of now becoming the third largest economy in the world. We're looking at a developed nation status in the next 10, 15 years. I'm sure it's going to all happen in front of us before our own eyes. And of course, the task to do is also on us only. And as he rightly mentioned, it's up to us to walk the talk. And this is what will actually see the result of a developed India coming very soon. And all this actually is fitting in at the right place at the right time.
Very well said, sir. You touched upon the topic of tariffs and how there has been a declaration from India in the calmest way possible that we don't take well to bullying. Having said that, industry will have to pay the price, and export-oriented industry as well. I wanted your perspective, from a Maruti perspective, from a corporate citizen's perspective, on what has been playing out. Because yes, there is a chilling impact as well.
Okay. It's an interesting question. So the auto industry in India, the car industry in India, does not import or export any car to the US in any meaningful volume. However, Maruti alone, for example, we export to more than 100 countries of the world. And not only do we export cars, and just you spoke about Gujarat, just about a week ago, we hosted the Honorable Prime Minister at our plant for an inauguration of our EV exports to more than 100 countries of the world. So this is the latest technology exports. You might recall some time ago, from the country that you mentioned, there was talk of whether we should facilitate a particular manufacturer importing CBUs into India, completely built up cars into India. While the debate continued, we said, let us work on our own, turn the paradigm from imports to exports.
So you're talking about United States and Tesla? let me fill in the blanks.
So exports is the answer, and I would go a step further, diversified exports. So today, for example, if we have exports to 100 countries of the world, God forbid something goes wrong with a particular economy, a particular country, or a particular market in some part of the world, we are fairly diversified. So we'll ensure that our exports continue and not much of an effect happens. I would also extend the logic backwards towards import substitution. We have to make an effort trying to make everything in India. There are some trade textbooks will tell you that you should specialize in your area of strength and allow specialization and division of labor. I don't believe in it. A country as large and as heterogeneous as India needs to have its supply chain total independence. So Atmanirbharta and Make in India are very powerful philosophies.
So you're making EVs, you need the rare earth.
Fine, but despite whatever you heard about rare earth, we were able to export to 100 countries of the world. So we found a solution. So solutions, many times these solutions have to be innovative. One of the other inaugurations that we did at the same occasion was localizing the electrode of the battery, deep level localization. So from battery to cell to electrode, we are localizing in India. And as the COVID crisis has shown, the semiconductor crisis shown, container crisis, time after again there has been a reminder that we have to make as much in India and get as self-reliant as possible.
That is the clarion call, Atmanirbhar. Be self-reliant, find other exporting partners, and of course for domestic consumption, we have now the GST booster dose. We have all the ingredients. Now it's up to the people, corporate citizens, to cook up a storm. Thank you so much to all of you.
Thank you so much.